Thanks, Blair. What a day, right?
I know, right? Incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm really happy that you agreed to join us on the stage today. It means a lot, and I think it's very important also for me to say, like, Gemini has always been on my radar. I remember talking to, I think it was to Cameron back in the days when we were raising funds and like seeing them as being part of the crypto ecosystem in the early days. I'm curious to hear, like, from you if you can share any like thoughts around their vision for Gemini and like how you see Gemini moving forward, also here in Europe especially.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, a bit of background about Gemini for those that aren't kind of familiar. We were founded or launched in 2015. We're out of New York. We were founded on 4 foundational pillars, as it were: security, compliance, licensing, and product. And the rationale behind that was, Tyler and Cameron are certainly kind of early adopters of crypto. And when they certainly got into the market, it was not the environment that we see now. It's definitely more kind of that Mt. Gox environment, Wild West, generally. And they wanted to build an exchange that was more in keeping with what they would expect for traditional finance. And so why shouldn't crypto be any different? The Gemini mantra has always been about being regulatory first, and those kind of 4 foundational pillars kind of underpin that. And so that's been our ethos both in the US, and then we expanded further. In the UK was the first expansion point from the US, which is amazing. We formally launched in 2020 here. After going through, what is, and a few people will empathise with this, a detailed process for the FCA in relation to getting a e-money institution license, and also we were the second and third firms, because we're split in that regard, to get the FCA's crypto asset registration, so the crypto's version of the Willy Wonka golden ticket. I'm sure there'll be a few other people invited to the chocolate factory at some point. But in all seriousness, that kind of underpins how important it was to us that we wanted to operate as we wanted to go on. And so regulation is a really important part of our business. It always will be, because when customers kind of see Gemini, they see a firm that is certainly, when it's looking to launch products and services or in different markets, it's one that has that regulatory inclusion liaison and kind of adherence as a primary part of its operating process. So in terms of our vision going forward, that will always be a critical part of our business. But I think it's important to kind of illustrate the fact that a key part of the foundational pillars is product, and so you can have subtlety and nuance and excitement to our product, whilst also being mindful of what keeps you off the regulatory radar. So I think there won't be a kind of a massive shift away from that, because that's all what we're about. But I think it's also about kind of demonstrating that Gemini is also a really interesting place for both consumers and institutional partners to come into.
That makes a lot of sense, for sure. And also I would say, like, when I think back about Gemini and how I've followed Gemini over the years, I also remember you had regulation and crypto on the same banner on the taxi cabs in New York, and I saw that everywhere, which really meant something to me, because that was not something you saw that much from the industry, and it was a very clear statement there. Has that also informed your global expansion and how you approach global markets that way?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Look, we're a permission, not forgiveness company. So for the UK, we could have opened up earlier and kind of sought the regulatory approval after the event, but that's not how we kind of operate. And so, we opened in October 2020 here, but could quite conceivably opened much earlier on and gone through that, existed through the temporary permission regime, as a bunch of other firms have done. But it was critically important for us to kind of, to show up early and to say, look, we want to, start as you mean to go on. And so getting that regulator approval and being able to demonstrate to the market that we have that we are approved, and we can provide, demonstrative evidence that we've gone through that kind of regulatory approval process to our customers, both consumers and institutions. It was certainly an important part of how we wanted how we want to enter any market. So, global expansion will be a big part of the future for Gemini, no doubt. And we are in other locations, and developing in those spaces. But making sure that we have the right regulatory approvals, that we have that we can kind of liaise with regulators in the right way, will always be kind of a key component of our business. But that also doesn't mean that we can't challenge regulators, and we can't be. It's not a one-way thing. It can be it can and should be two ways.
And maybe we should jump into the golden ticket from Willy Wonka a little bit, and like the FCA approval that you received. And I think I'm curious to hear like how it's been working with FCAs and like getting that approval process going. But also I'm curious maybe what is your take on FCA's approach to the industry and thought around that, because clearly a lot of things have happened over the last 10 years and a lot of things have evolved and so on. And I'm just curious to know like what do you see coming? How have they been working with FCA there?
Yeah, look, I think everything changes and nothing changes. But in one regard, but I think what we'll see here, kind of our view is that 2022 is going to be a unique year for legislation. And that's definitely kind of the viewpoint for us. The 2020 was an important year for legislation in the UK as regards to crypto, because it was the point at which the crypto asset registration process could commence under the Fifth Money Laundering Directive, and so that was a critical part of of crypto becoming even more kind of mainstream and kind of accepted as being here to stay. I think we had an incredibly successful year as an industry and as a company last year, and we've kind of moved beyond, well beyond that tipping point of are we here to stay? It's, we've gone from that Wild West reference to a whole different kind of whole banner of kind of conversations being, crypto is a risk to financial services, et cetera, et cetera. So, local government or governments in general kind of are mindful of that, and I think we'll see more and more kind of adoption of different legislation probably this year. In the UK in particular, there's been relatively recently, several weeks ago, we had bits and pieces coming from the FCA and the Treasury in relation to how it foresees how it wishes to kind of allow access to crypto and financial promotions for crypto companies as well. From our perspective, as a general point, as I kind of outlined at the start, regulation is critical. That is the way that crypto becomes more kind of widely accepted, and it's an opportunity for the really strong, mindful, considerate companies to succeed and to develop further and give customers confidence in our space, even more so than they do so. However, when it comes to regulation, it really must be nuanced, and it must be kind of broad and kind of well considered. And earlier this week, I co-signed the letter from Innovate Finance on the back of the year anniversary of the Khalifa report, and and one of the key parts of that letter to me was calling out the importance of legislation for the UK that will enable us to have a very broad crypto mandate and enable crypto to flourish and businesses here to flourish and to really give us an opportunity to develop the UK as as a global leader of crypto and migrate that from traditional fintech, if that is the right phrase, to the opportunity that crypto provides. One of the concerns that we obviously have about some of the bits of legislation is, we think that consumer protection is vitally important, absolutely, and any legislation should have that at its heart. One concern of the kind of proposals to drive it towards kind of more of a restricted mass market solution is the fact that, as I said before, we've gone past that tipping point. People want to access crypto, and making it harder for the general public to access it and not, and having it restricted in the UK, for example, to high net wealth or sophisticated investors, isn't going to stop people that are at risk accessing crypto. it's more likely to drive them to locations where they're not protected, where they're not, they're not going to be accessing a company like ourselves that, protects their fiat through safeguarding accounts, that has a whole level of kind of AML oversight from an FCA perspective on both the fiat and the crypto side. So that is, that's why we're certainly working with Treasury and the FCA and various others about kind of making that point clear, because it's important to protect customers, but it's also it's important to understand what an unintended consequence of regulation, which doesn't kind of consider all kind of aspects, can have. And and then on the flip, we also have the financial promotions side of legislation that's been planned. And look, I think we generally think that's kind of a positive. And I think no one wants to see adverts that encourage inappropriate behaviour, and provide our industry with a stick to beat us with. We want people to be excited and interested to come to crypto, but we don't want people to be lured into things that they're not prepared for. And so we encourage that. I think there's nuances to that part of the legislation that will be important as well. I think it's it'll be important that crypto firms that are registered here are accountable for that and are able to issue their own financial promotions and be accountable for that, because that is one of the kind of key parts of that legislation that will make that more tricky in relation to if you're not subject to a FSMA. How do you go about releasing that financial promotion or get that approved? So we think crypto firms should be accountable. We want to be accountable and make those decisions in terms of how we're promoting in the way that we've always done, which is ensuring that they're fair and not misleading.
That makes sense, yeah. And again, it's fun because when I think back about the UK and crypto, I have one memory from back in I think it's December 2017 or so, and there was a big growth in retail adoption of crypto back then. I'm sitting in the theater watching the Harry Potter play that was out at that time, and there was when there was a break, everyone who sat back was sitting with their phones and trading crypto.
Right.
And you just saw this on all the phones, you could definitely see everyone check the price. So a lot of stuff have happened back then. I remember the ads in the tube from back then, and some of those are probably some you think about as well, where it was maybe a little bit of another tone that you see in the industry today. So a lot of things have changed there. And also, if you go outside of the UK and into the European regulatory scene, I remember back in 2015 where I got involved in a lobbying group here. You're probably part of the same one in the European Union, and founded that one. We started working on the 5th Anti-Money Laundering Directive. Before that, the problem were for crypto businesses, they couldn't even submit suspicious activity anywhere because they didn't have a regulatory regime. Yeah. But at the same time, everything was legal, but no one really liked that they did it. But so it was very problematic setup. That has changed with the 5th Anti-Money Laundering Directive. It's kind of been rolled out. Some other stuff is happening there. And now we hear another acronym, MiCA. That's a new thing. Can you dive into what is happening on the European scene as well there, and how do you see that affecting here and potentially growth plan you could have in Europe and other things?
Yeah, look, I think MiCA is a really interesting bit of legislation. And one of the challenges with the 5th directive, we have that in the UK as a parting gift before Brexit. But the problem with the directive is it's not a passportable license. It's an AML approval, so it's not like the EMI license or other such licenses. It's very much kind of jurisdictional based. The opportunity that MiCA provides is for a similar passporting opportunity. Whereby a firm could be licensed in Ireland, for example, which is one of the location that we're currently going down a route with, and the opportunity for that to be passportable for crypto, jurisdiction to jurisdiction, without having to seek licenses in every one of those locations. I think that is a developing bit of legislation, and for all of us, sort of my background is compliance for many years. And the reality is we all know that legislation in EU changes enormously once you get into the trilogue and on all of that kind of fun bureaucracy stuff that the EU is so good at. But the reality is that once that kind of comes into fruition, that will certainly give a really good platform for crypto to develop even further in the EU space. I think what is clear is that there's a lot more road to travel in that space. I think, there was news, I think either yesterday or the day before, about how there would be we all know the plans about a central kind of AML regulator for the EU. I think there will probably be a central kind of EU crypto-based approver for this kind of license, and I think that seems like the way that's going. And I think you've got countries like Germany and France that have their own kind of legislation on top of the fifth directive that they're particularly mindful of. So I think I think MiCA is going to happen. It's going to change from the way it looks now, I suspect, and the way the approval's going to go. But I think it will be a really important critical step for the EU to continue its positive trajectory on crypto. And we saw I saw your slide there, and Europe as a region, from my understanding, is the #1 region in the world for crypto. The UK is an enormous part of all of that. So it's really important that both the EU and the UK really consider its legislation in a way that enables crypto to grow even further, notwithstanding Sir Alex's comment about government interest in crypto more than ever before.
Definitely. Yeah, and you mentioned government, and also one of the things that I think we saw last year, growth of crypto basically 5x'd in terms of by all parameters you measure. One of the things that actually decreased was the relative usage for criminal activity. Normally we would count that in like around 1% or so, but now we are down in basis points, like 15 to 20 basis points or so. So it's clearly on a decline, and I'm just curious to hear a little bit about what have you been, because fighting crime is of course happens on the public sector, but it definitely also happens in the private sector in terms of compliance departments and so on. So if there's anything you can share around like how you have been working with the public sector on fighting crime to identify criminal activity and other things on the platform and abuse of the platform.
Yeah, sure. Look, I think that it's, the law enforcement in the UK is on a steep learning curve when it comes to crypto, and I've been in the crypto space for quite a while now, not quite as long as you, but getting there. And so when I started out to where we are now, it's complete light years away ahead now. And one of the critical things for me is a whole bunch more liaison that is happening between the more overarching national crime agency type environment. So for example, 2 years ago I think it was, I was the chair of the National Crime Agency's UK FIU cryptocurrency working group. Just rolls off the tongue, that, doesn't it? But in all seriousness, that was a really important step for us. And it had the likes of ourselves, Circle, Coinbase, and a variety of other ones. Go to Gemini first, not any of those ones. But the reality is that it was a really important step for us to start to have those discussions and engagement with law enforcement from a coordinated basis, not just the sporadic engagement from this law enforcement or that law enforcement about how we kind of engage and like what kind of activity they're seeing and how we can kind of help them. So it was, that particular group had the NEC, it had UK FIU, had a variety of different kind of items as well, and it helped build that liaison and that understanding and trust. And then from that, I did a podcast and webinars for law enforcement and a variety of other people through the NCA. We did two, one basically on Crypto 101. This is, what is Bitcoin, what is blockchain, what is crypto, all of that kind of good stuff. And sometimes you just got to go down to that basic level because people, there's so much understanding of all of these things. They don't know where one thing starts and one thing ends. And we all get kind of, excited by phraseology, but it is a barrier to entry for people. And that's one of the things that, I love, like, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but I love the acronyms of crypto, but it also stops people understanding.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a disappointment. That's a part that I think we need to be mindful of. But so I think in summary to your point, I think it's really been about more conscious engagement, helping them get to the point, developing contacts with them as well. And it's not just law enforcement; it's also private sector as well, going out to banks and whoever else, and just literally play, pause, repeat, to all of these folks and helping them understand that crypto is not to be terrified of. And I think, where we are now is, it's kind of moved on so much further from that. And I think, it's incumbent on all of us in the crypto space where we have that opportunity to help law enforcement and not be afraid of that engagement.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's been key, and especially companies that's been around for as long as Gemini and Chainalysis. Like, we've seen that education is really a key piece, and trying to present, work with groups from government, other groups, and basically educate on what is crypto about. And I know you have a page with a domain name I'm highly envious of, because I would like to have bought it once, Cryptopedia, which I really like, and I know that you have that for educational purposes. Yeah. I know you work with that. Is there anything you want to share around the way you work on educating the ecosystem and governments in that way specifically? Yeah,
look, absolutely. Cryptopedia is a great reference tool, and thank you for the plug there. But in all seriousness, it's about 300 articles on there by about 150 odd contributors, and it's a really important part of how we want to go about our business. I kind of referenced the start about our 4 foundational pillars. A silent part across all of that is the education piece, and crypto is at such a great point. We've developed so much further, and growth is there, but we've really got to help people understand crypto more than ever before, to really enable it to truly get its understanding kind of more broadly out there, and allow people to get in. And Cryptopedia is not just pitched at the top level of people that want to really kind of understand nuances and protocols and all the rest of it. It really it's foundational, that middle kind of area, and advanced as well. So really kind of getting into the into basic details about how you can protect yourself, what to kind of look out for, what to be mindful of, and again, what is Bitcoin, what is Ethereum, how did it start, who is Satoshi, kind of and we kind of, it's all things that we take advantage of in terms of, we already know this, but it's really important that we kind of help people get into that so they can understand things a little bit broader. An important part of our trajectory in the education space was also we signed up for the Take Action to Stop Fraud. We're the only crypto native firm to be part of that, and I'm really proud of it. I'm a key believer in how important it is to make sure that people get into crypto, are excited by crypto, but are safe in crypto. And the idea that scams and bad actors are not present in crypto, I think we all know that isn't the case, because I think traditional finance, any kind of finance, is naturally is interesting to bad actors. So I think we've got to take that in mind and do whatever we can to help customers come into the space, be safe, and enjoy that. And so education is a big part of our playbook, as well as the kind of regulatory piece. And we also want to, we also recognise that sometimes we do things, things can go wrong, and we also see that, as part of that regulatory piece, the opportunity that the financial ombudsman might have to play in this. And I think it's, at the moment, because of the regulatory landscape, there isn't financial ombudsman accountability on firms in that crypto space. And I think that is something that should change. And we're happy to be accountable. We want to be accountable, and we want to give customers that safety and protection. So education is a big part of that, and accountability at the back end.
That makes total sense. I want to shift gear a little bit, and as you mentioned acronyms before, I usually say acronyms never sleep. There's a new one today, there's a new one tomorrow, there's a lot of them. We saw a new one popping up over the last couple of years, NFTs. We've seen the metaverse being a new word. We've seen a lot of other things happening in the crypto space, and there's a lot of new initiatives there. What is your thought on like opportunities in that space? Is there anything you think about from Gemini point of view that you want to enter there? Something that excites you and see like what are the new opportunities that's emerging here in 2022?
Yeah, I mean, with the acronyms, I feel like I should invent a company that enables you to very quickly understand what these are, because I'm too old to remember them off the top of my head. But look, you're absolutely right. I think what we've seen is a real manifestation of things that were much in the same way that crypto, probably, on top of the 2017 stuff. I think 2021 was that kind of explosion year again. I think NFTs and metaverse and all that stuff are kind of following a similar trajectory. We have, a blatant plug. We have Nifty Gateway that is part of our kind of NFT equation, and that's a terrific marketplace that enables art to be procured and stored and all of that kind of good stuff. And we've seen tremendous growth and interest in Nifties, as we call them, over the last year, and we envisage that to kind of grow even more this year. You're absolutely right about the metaverse and Web 3.0 and DeFi and all of that good stuff. And we have the Gemini Frontier Fund that is invested in a variety of different projects in both the DeFi space and the metaverse space, such as Somnium and many others. So Gemini certainly kind of came about initially as a very much an exchange and custodian, but we've manifested into so much more than that now with the likes of Nifty and we're certainly a gateway to DeFi, and globally we offer the rewards credit cards and Gemini Earn and things of that kind of nature, and naturally we kind of think about opportunities that present in other markets as well for some of those kind of products and services. So what I would definitely see is every one of those kind of areas continuing to grow, and I think Nifty Gateway or Nifties in general and DeFi, I think it's going to be a really interesting year for that, as kind of the general public becomes even more conscious of that and gets more comfort through things like we were talking about before, like education.
Definitely. Thank you so much for coming on stage. I really enjoyed this conversation. It was awesome.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Great
you.
to be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.